It stands still until it blinks. The smile spreads across its face just a moment too late. The eyes don't move right. The voice hits your ears a half second off. It's not threatening. It's not malfunctioning. But something's wrong. You know it before you can say it. It's a face, human-shaped, skin-covered, blinking, breathing, and still wrong. That feeling has a name, the Uncanny Valley. It's not terror, not revulsion, not exactly. It's the sense of something being almost right. The curve of a cheek, the rhythm of a breath, the impression of life running just 1 degree too cold. You've probably felt it near a wax figure or a robotic greeter or a hyper-real CGI character. It's not the inhuman that disturbs you, it's the almost human. That brief visceral rejection, the impulse to step back, to squint, to leave. People call it a design flaw, a visual bug, a psychological glitch. But what if it isn't? What if the feeling was earned? What if that chill isn't a malfunction in your perception, but a reflex your ancestors passed down? Because once upon a time, long before electric lights and uncanny dolls and animatronic hosts, we saw faces like this. Not quite ours, but close. And some of those faces belonged to beings we probably could not trust, beings we feared, beings we have erased. And maybe what we feel now isn't confusion, maybe it's recognition. Let's talk about the science behind this phenomenon. In 1970, roboticist Masahiro Mori noticed something strange. When a machine became more human-like, people liked it more, until suddenly they didn't. He drew a graph, realism on one axis, emotional response on the other. The curve rose, then plunged into a trough of discomfort before rising again when the robot looked indistinguishably human. He called this dip the Uncanny Valley. That valley is where wax figures live, where prosthetic hands seem off, where CGI faces twitch just a beat too late. They aren't ugly, they're too close. At the time, Mori's idea was theory, but it's since been backed by data. In 2005, Katsuri et al. Tested reactions to faces along a scale from cartoon to hyperreal. Audiences responded warmly until about 75 to 90% realism at the highest. From there, the bottom dropped out. Viewers reported discomfort, even revulsion. The reason, as neuroscience would later show, runs deep. fMRI scans from Chetam and Saigon revealed that near-human faces trigger increased activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear and disgust center. Even if the face isn't doing anything threatening, the brain reacts as if it might. And when the motion is wrong, too stiff, too smooth, the motor system short-circuits. Saigon's team found that participants struggled to predict movement, leading to confusion and tension. The visual system sees a person, the body doesn't buy it. But even infants, just 9 months old, show signs of stress when facial expressions don't match the voice. That's not culture, that's wiring. The Uncanny Valley isn't just about robots or CGI, it's a neural drop zone, and our brains have known the terrain for a very long time. You see it out of the corner of your eye, long, curved, coiled. Your pulse spikes, muscles tighten. Then you realize it's just a stick. But your brain didn't wait. This reaction is ancient. Lynn Isabel's research in 2006 and 2009 showed that primates, including humans, have neurons in their pulvinar region of the brain tuned specifically for snake shapes. Even crude outlines trigger fear faster than thought. There's plenty of instincts we inherited from ancient times. Sometimes we can trace them back to a period when we weren't even mammals yet. For example, we can date the startle reflex as far as 400 million years ago, the fear of eyes or gaze detection as far back as 300 million years ago. Same goes for your fear of the dark. All are linked to possible predators' proximity. We evolved to see threats instantly, and what applies to snakes or other predators may apply to faces. Humans are face-reading machines. We scan for symmetry, motion, health, intent, and we don't just notice, we decode. In under 50 milliseconds, we register friend or threat. And when a face is off, too stiff, too symmetrical, slightly delayed, it trips another circuit. It doesn't look dead. It doesn't look alive. It looks wrong. This is where disgust comes in, not fear. Evolutionary psychologist Valerie Curtis argued in 2011 that disgust evolved to protect us from pathogens. We recoil at rashes, twitches, asymmetries, anything signaling infection or decay. This system runs pre-consciously, like the snake alarm. We don't decide to feel it. And this response doesn't just target disease, it targets biological anomalies. The Uncanny Valley isn't activated by difference. It's triggered by almost rightness. It's a pattern violation buried in the gut. A glitch we didn't design, but inherited. Because at some point in our deep past, the difference between like us and not quite wasn't aesthetic. It was life and death. Long before we stood alone as the sole remaining hominin species, the world was crowded with different types of humans. Like, actually different. Not like the vague concept of race that was applied throughout most of the 20th century. They were real beings with bodies like ours, tools in their hands, eyes that stared back. Still, they were different. It was about the face, the bodies sometimes. Homo erectus spread across Africa 2 million years ago, but they weren't alone. They shared the land with strange cousins. Paranthropus with crushing jaws and flat, expressionless faces. Homo habilis and rhodolfensis, whose intelligence we still debate. And giant baboon-like primates like Diplopithecus and Theopithecus, capable of bipedal movement, maybe even cooperation. If they behaved anything like the baboons of today, no wonder we used to be afraid of them. Some were herbivores, some scavengers, some predators, but all were close enough to confuse. Imagine raising a child in a world where a rustle in the bush might reveal something human-shaped, but not quite. Imagine encountering someone at short range and wondering, should I run, fight, or speak? If that ever happened to you with just an eerie stranger, you know very well this feeling. This blank pause in your mind saying, what the hell should I do? Because the body said kin, but the face didn't follow through. And we weren't just decoding these beings, we were surviving them. Derek Bickerton, in his 2009 work on language evolution, proposed that the rise of symbolic thinking wasn't just about cooperation, it was about differentiation. Telling apart us from them had become a vital stake, Not lions from gazelles, but cousins from competitors. These weren't faceless predators, but almost us. Most probably walking the same trails, using the same tools, hunting the same game, and possibly watching you from the trees of the shadows. And our brains had to learn fast how to spot a rival in a familiar body, how to sense danger before words, how to recognize wrongness in a face too close to be safe. The uncanny didn't start in the future. It actually did during the undergrowth, beside a fire, with a stare that lasted too long. However, even with everything we described and our shared instinct, it seems our history as a species is just more complex than that. Our DNA shows contact, conflict, and memory. In 2010, Svante Pääbo's team sequenced the Neanderthal genome, revealing something we hadn't thought possible, but that's widely admitted today. Modern humans carry their DNA, up to 3% in most Eurasians. Such a percentage could only mean prolonged contact and mating in between us and them. Then the same happened with the Denisovans. They left 5% of their DNA in some populations of Melanesia and Southeast Asia. We've barely attributed Denisovan's face to a skull we found years ago, showing we've still got a long way to go before figuring everything out. In 2014, Vernot and RK revealed an even stranger truth. People in West Africa carry up to 20% DNA from an unknown hominin, one we've never seen. No bones, no tools, just genetic residue, a ghost lineage, unnamed and unburied. Meanwhile, the so-called hobbits of Indonesia, Homo floresiensis, stood barely a meter tall and may have shared islands with our ancestors as recently as 50,000 years ago. They made stone tools, they hunted, and then they vanished. They most definitely were not a species hidden in isolation. They were faces we saw, species we lived alongside for tens of thousands of years. We met them. We followed each other, with literal footprints on the same strata and dating back to the same period, with sometimes as short as days in difference. Sometimes we mated. Sometimes we killed. So maybe that flicker of discomfort, that flash of revulsion, isn't aimed at the future at all. Maybe it's just a remnant of a face we once knew and made disappear. We evolved to recoil from risk, not to be creeped out by androids. And the Uncanny Valley may be the intersection of three ancient overlapping dangers, each one slightly shaping how we judge a face. The first is disease. In 2011, Shala and Duncan showed that humans are hypersensitive to minor facial cues that suggest illness. Sunken eyes, asymmetry, unnatural stillness. These signs trigger disgust faster than conscious reasoning. It's a reflex to avoid proximity and thus contamination. The second is death. Corpses don't advertise their decay, but they move differently, or don't move at all. In 2021, Maud and Frund outlined how early humans likely evolved subtle corpse detection systems based on movement, breath cues, skin color, positions, and so on. Something that looks alive but isn't alarms us. If this person is dead, what killed it might still be lingering around, warning you to get the hell out of here as fast as you can. Then comes the third, the almost human threat. In 2014, Grammer's team studied reactions to faces morphed between human and non-human traits. The closer the face got to full realism without reaching it, the more psychological stress it caused. Not curiosity, not confusion, but rejection. It's not just that the face is unfamiliar, it's that your brain can't classify it. That's what creates the unease. It doesn't say danger, it says something's off. Too symmetrical, too frozen, too lifelike, but lifeless. A face that could carry a disease, a body that could be dead. Or an intelligence just close enough to compete, but not close enough to trust. The uncanny valley isn't one instinct, it's a tripwire, braided from sickness, stillness and threat. All of them whispering the same thing. Step back, don't touch, something's wrong. Horror doesn't invent fear, it remembers it. That mannequin in the corner, the doll with two wide eyes, the deep fake that smiles just a little too long. These aren't new tricks, they are precision tools, crafted to tap into instincts we never unlearned. In 2012, researcher Miyamoto showed that viewers consistently rated slightly off human faces, especially in CGI and animation, as more disturbing than monstrous or grotesque ones. The closer a character came to looking real without quite getting there, the deeper the emotional rejection. Horror designers know this. That's why haunted houses use wax figures, not demons. Why ghost stories often hinge on a face that's just wrong. The scare doesn't land when the monster lunges. It lands in the silence. When you're not sure if the figure by the bed is alive or ever was. It also works in most horror movies. Quite often, the horror isn't depicted in the form of a monster. It's shown through the shape of a human body. Demonic possessions, human mimicking like in The Thing from John Carpenter and so on. It's not the human form that's scary, it's the intent. And in the two cases I just mentioned, it's clear that intentions are wrong, very wrong. Even in oral traditions, skinwalkers which mimic human appearance or even voices have encountered more and more interest as of 2020. And this unease isn't confined to the media. In sleep paralysis episodes, people across cultures report the same recurring presence, a shadowy, human-like figure, often male, standing nearby, not moving, just watching. In 2015, Jalal et al. Found that this shape appears most often when the body is frozen, but the mind is alert. A perfect storm for ancestral alarm. The brain detects a person but doesn't feel safe, so it fills the gap with dread. This is horror's real power. It doesn't frighten us with fantasy. It reactivates instincts buried under centuries, maybe thousands of years of culture. The uncanny valley isn't a genre gimmick. It's horror's oldest tool, and we've been recoiling from it. We call the uncanny valley a glitch, a quirk of perception, an evolutionary error, but the longer we stare into it, the more it begins to stare back. Because the face that disturbs us most, the one that's almost human, isn't a robot. It's not made of silicon or rendered in pixels. It's a memory, a shape we once knew. It's the shape of the others. We didn't become the only human species on Earth through luck. The archaeological record hints at violence, replacement, extinction. It does within prehistory and even in our modern history. within our own species, mass graves, cultural layers that vanish overnight, and the Y chromosome bottleneck where 5,000 years ago 90% of male lineages disappear, suggests more than disease or famine. It suggests warfare, culling, purge. We could do it to our own kind, so why wouldn't we do it to strangers that look different anyway? What we feel when we see a nearly human face may not be fear of being fooled. It may be the echo of something we did, or something we survived. What scares us isn't the robot or the CGI smiles. What does is the face it reminds us of. A cousin, a rival, a species too close to kill without cost and too dangerous to live. We feel a chill, not because the face is new, but because it's familiar in a way we can't place. Sometimes an encounter was kill or be killed. We knew, they knew. We knew each other knew. Our ancestors didn't always run. Sometimes they chose to fight. Then, when the memories were too hard to bear, forget. And now the memory leaks back, not as history, but as instinct. The uncanny valley isn't a design flaw, it's a burial ground. And that shiver you feel, it's what's left when recognition outlives remorse. If this video shifted how you see faces, real or imagined, don't let it stop there. Like it, share it, pass it to someone who's ever flinched at a wax figure or paused at a blinking android. And in the comments, tell us, what do you think the uncanny valley is remembering? Is it fear, guilt, a warning we still haven't decoded? We may not know exactly what those faces meant, but our bodies still do. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep listening to the echoes.